good to see you all. What's been going on? Holy shit, what just happened? Hi everybody, I'm so glad you made it out. Thanks for coming out, thanks for dressing up, thanks for wearing your masks. I truly hope you and all your family are safe and sound. I recognize that in addition, it's been really far out, that in addition to all the existential crises we've been facing, every single one of us had to deal with a whole bunch of our own existential crises. And I'm really sorry for what you've gone through, and I went through it too. And it is really nice to be on the other end and looking at all your shining faces out there. So thanks for the triumph of enthusiasm over fear, and I'm glad that you are all safe and sound. God, there's so, it's like, I've been thinking about this for a couple of days now, just constantly, like, oh, it's going to be so nice to see human beings. Do you notice, by the way, like, one of the things I love is that everywhere I'm going, the customer service people are dying to talk. Like, every waiter I have is like, yeah, I just repainted my apartment. And I'm like, I'm just trying to order food, but that's awesome. We're so hungry to talk to each other. I'm going to be taking some questions. I don't have a lot of new stuff to show because it's been weird. I'm in the midst of doing, I know that often, almost always, I cosplay at the cons. I am not cosplaying today or this weekend. It will happen soon, I promise. You can't keep me from doing it, but I have 8 cons in 10 weeks right now. Yeah, I'm traveling almost constantly for the next couple of months, and given the infrastructure, we actually just finished a really big fatty of a build on Tested that we're going to reveal later on this fall. It's really exciting. Plus, we have a whole bunch of stuff coming out to do with the new Ghostbusters film. Ghostbusters Afterlife is going to restore your faith in humanity. Oh, I can't imagine why your faith in humanity was challenged. Who is here with more than one costume for the weekend? Raise your hand. Holy cow! That is commitment, man, especially in this heat. Because, like, in this heat, just getting from your house to the car is like, I think I need a shower now. Is this 2 Beetlejuices next to each other?
Adam and the Beetlejuice being Adam. Yes.
Oh! That is so awesome. So I'd love to just jump right into the question period. We have a microphone here. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, there's one over there, and there's one over there. So please line up the microphones. I will not get to all the questions, I imagine, but I will attempt to. And I'm curious what's been going on for you guys. I can't wait to chat. Hello, Ghostbusters. Why don't we start with you?
Good afternoon, Mr. Savage.
Good afternoon.
Been a fan of yours for many, many years now. And I know everyone has the same question as I do, is how we're just working on Ghostbusters Afterlife. How was the experience working with the original crew?
Getting to visit the set of Ghostbusters Afterlife, and there is a couple of key ways in which I worked with the producers on the film. Jason Reitman is a good friend. He is a remarkable human being, and he's written a beautiful and loving script. And everyone on the crew in Canada was such a fan of Ghostbusters. It was like when the prop crew is keeping you an extra 20 minutes to show you the resistor that they found, and the one little bit of cannon that they decided to adjust as an in-joke for y'all. Yeah, I cannot wait till this film comes out. It's really, really exciting. And there's so many little wrinkles and little bits of the ways in which Tested participated and helped out, and also got to witness this incredible crew make this beautiful film. I'm really excited.
Thank you very much.
Plus, I'm going to say this. I got to drive the Ecto 1. So here's the thing, when you meet an old Hollywood stunt driver, there is just nothing that impresses them. And you can imagine being a Hollywood stunt driver that every movie star in the world has been a jerk to them. So they are not impressed with you. They don't necessarily want to give you the time of day. So I'm in the Ecto one with the guy who's wrangling it for the production, and I'm like, "Can I drive it?" He's like, "Yep." And I'm like, "Really? I didn't think you'd say yeah." And he's like, "I know you're working." Thanks for the question.
Thank you very much.
You had microphone had one way over on the side. There was a human in a. Just a second though. I think there was. Traveling mic. We have a person in a wheelchair. Where is that? Yes. Okay. Go.
My question is, how hard was it to build the Iron Man suit in the latest season?
And so you mean the titanium Iron Man suit?
Yes.
There was a huge pain in the ass to make that. We partnered up with the Colorado School of Mines, M-I-N-E-S. There is not a Colorado School of Mimes. And everyone at that school has heard that joke. We partnered up with, I was doing an appearance a few years ago at the Colorado School of Mines, and they were showing me their brand new 3D printing facility. By the way, if you are a young engineering person, this is a phenomenal engineering school, a tiny little program, hard to get into, but really, really dedicated, and the students there were amazing, the faculty was amazing. And they showed me this 3D printing facility with a 3D printing machine that printed in titanium, and they were like, "Do you have anything you want to print in titanium?" And I was like, "Boy, do I." And I reached out through a mutual friend to Kevin Feige and said, "I was thinking about making Iron Man's armor." And Kevin said, "Really smart not going through the lawyers. I will make this happen." And he did. Legacy FX gave me the files for the original Iron Man Mark II. These files were from the movie, so they were really hard to work with. And so the students at Colorado School of Mines were unpacking them and turning them into STLs, and then we're sending them to the 3D printing company, and then their printer turned out to not be able to print out fast enough, so for a period of a few days, I think we were using every titanium printer in America. And we almost broke them. But at the same time, I realized halfway through the episode that we were truly making a prototype Mark II armor. Like, this is absolutely a first prototype, not a stand-in for our first prototype. If Stark actually existed, this would have been one of the iterations. Yeah, that made it so satisfying. And I love when people come into the shop, I'm like, "That's 38 caliber Mark." And they're like, "It's not even a Mark." I know! And then there's the fourth. And the other thing about the two bullet marks in the chest is that actually for a reasonable period of time, medieval armor was proofed by them firing a musket ball or whatever they had that was shooting, wheel-lock gun, whatever. They would fire a bullet at the armor and the mark would show you that it was bulletproof. So I'm carrying on a long lineage of armor proofing. I don't know that I'm going to wear it again soon. It is just like, it is not like being locked in an Iron Maiden. It is being locked in an Iron Maiden. The only suit I have that is scary to put on is this incredible, I have a C-3PO costume that's hand-hammered out of brass by this wonderfully insane maker from South America. And it's like built like a saxophone. Seriously, and yet it's C-3PO. And when you put the head on and you start to tighten it, like, I don't get claustrophobic, but it turns out I can be made to get claustrophobic. Thank you for that awesome question. It's one of my favorite pieces in the whole collection.
Also, I love your show.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm going backwards through Mythbusters and watching them with my children, and me and my wife wanted to ask, what's your all-time favorite myth that you wanted to bust that you couldn't because restraints on TV?
No, really. Sure, I mean, sure, there's a whole Mythbusters After Dark, but we're never going to... Fill it in your head, I'm not going to help. But if it was weird and yet spectacular, Discovery wanted it on the air. They were never standing in our way for the super weird stuff. It took some convincing to have them let us make an episode about farts, but There is, in the last season, what's happening there? In the very last season, we were shooting an episode. There was this thing that would happen, which is, you know, we're always going to screw up the story. We're always going to bone the build at some point. But in the outline, it would just say, like, Adam builds this, Jamie builds this, and then they do the experiment. And my producer called me up, he's like, we're going to need some more drama in here. And I'm like, it's going to be created by us screwing up in real time. And so we were doing an episode in which the episode went so south, we ended up with so much extra material that I realized, in conjunction with my other producers, that we were going to have to get rid of one of the stories we had slated to film for the final season. And that story is called Pumpkin Duck Hunting. And the myth is that apparently American Indians used to do this. If you wanted to hunt ducks and you knew where they converged on a pond, let's say, you would take some pumpkins and float them in that pond. And then the ducks would get used to swimming around pumpkins. Then you take a pumpkin and carve 2 eye holes on it, put it over your head, and you swim over to the ducks, wearing a pumpkin. And then you capture the ducks. I spoke to a friend of mine who's a hunter and a weirdo. And he said, oh yeah, I've done that. What's really funny is that you can grab the duck by its feet, pull him under, and the duck next to him won't be aware of what just happened. I was like, okay, I can't do this on television to a duck, but I can reach out and grab it. And we even went so far as I built a remote-controlled pumpkin-shaped camera platform with a little propeller so we could steer and watch the ducks with the pumpkins. It came so close! And then we ended up with like 20 extra minutes of footage in this one finale episode, and because that footage was so good, I realized, we gotta get rid of the duck. So, yeah, I'm still not hunting ducks. Thank you for that question. Yes, sir.
I wanted to say thank you for the free advertising materials. We designed and built the remote firing devices that Alameda Bomb Squad used. And you guys
You're welcome.
on every single episode. If you ever have any need of explosive services, additionally, my sons Kevin and Zane are sorry to miss me. They're in school till 3:30. I was wondering if you could say hey to them. But likewise, if you ever need any services out there.
Thank you. Hi to your voice. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So Mythbusters episode, you guys crossed paths with storm chasers.
Yes.
And Jamie puts together that single-use tornado protection suit.
Yeah.
It got me wondering, did any discoveries or inventions from Mythbusters get patented or become commercially viable in any way?
No, none of them got patented. I mean, frankly, because much of what we did was so stupid. Also, you know, frankly, so little of what we did, I feel like, was like super innovative. And, you know, I think that we over-patent these days, but that's a totally separate discussion. There is this one in which we were doing, I can't remember what the episode was called, but it was about a hammered brass water torpedo with a bomb on it. Scariest episode I have ever worked on. Because in order to get this thing to actually explode when it hit a boat, we had to make a live explosive. Yeah, Bomb Squad guy will know what I'm talking about. We literally had to make an explosive that detonated because a switch got hit on contact, which meant for a period of time, human beings were near this thing in which one touch of a switch would cause it to go. No more of that ever again in my whole life. But Jamie was, this is a really good story. So we were hammering these brass pieces, and Jamie was starting to think about these big pieces of brass, and he wanted to do what's called water forming. And water forming, for those of you who didn't see the episode, you take thin sheets of copper, 18 gauge, 20 gauge, and you sandwich them between 2 pieces of steel with a pattern cut out of the steel. And if you get water into the copper, and it'll work with steel and other metals, even at house water pressure, which is 60 psi, spread out over the surface area of a thin piece of metal, you can actually water form large pieces of metal into these large domes. And there was this moment, Jamie is experimenting with it. He has these 2 pieces of 1-inch thick steel, plasma cut for him in this specific pattern with a hole pattern for bolting. And he puts 2 pieces in between it, and he's pumping the water pressure in for the first time. And I'm up in my office. I'm not on the shop floor that day. And he comes up to the office and he's like, "I wanted to come see something." And I go down, and what has happened is he's had a blowout. Like, one of the 2 copper sheets tore as it was filling. And he says, "Take a look at that." And this is how we shared information. So I'm staring at it, and I'm just thinking through what happened. And I'm realizing that, right, if there's plasma cut out of these 2 pieces of steel, then the edge is going to be a pretty sharp, non-round over, and that's exactly where the copper tore, so you need to provide some relief on it. Oh, wow, that is really cool, that even that little bit of relief really matters. And I turned to him and I was like, "I understand steel a little better than I did 5 minutes ago." And he went, "Yeah, me too, that's why I called you now." And then it turns out there is a musical instrument that is like a mini steel drum. And they're like this big, and they've been hand-hammered forever until the people who played that instrument saw that episode. And now that musical instrument is made using water forming. Yeah, apparently Jamie changed an entire industry of this one esoteric musical instrument. How cool is that? Hello.
Hello. I'm trying to reach. What is the most hot garbage build you've ever done that maybe the mind of Elon Musk can help you with?
That maybe the mind of Elon Musk can help me with? Well, that would have been the Iron Man armor. I mean, don't you imagine that Elon's got a suit of armor and he's not showing us? I'm so sure he knows he needs the protection. I mean, he's a billionaire. Hot garbage build.
Sorry.
No. It's an interesting question, because I thought you were going to ask about hot, because boy, it's hot here. I was at the Disney World and the Hollywood Universal Studios yesterday, and holy cow, it's like the surface of the sun out there. The costume performers, the Chewbacca's, my hat is off to them. But hot garbage build. I mean, it sounds sort of like you're hoping I'll have a memory of something that really kicked my ass. And the fact is, every build in some way finds a way to kick my ass.
What about the subwoofer car?
The subwoofer car. For the Cybertruck. If I was going to pitch something to Elon, I would like to work on spacesuits with those guys. Absolutely. The headline just came out today that NASA's spacesuit program is behind and won't be ready with a new suit until 2025, which is a problem because they're hoping to be on the moon in 2024, and they can't show up without dress. No shoes, no shirt, no guys. But it's a very exciting time for spacesuits because they're trying out the new Artemis XEMU suits. My friend Don Pettit has been in the pool daily, weekly, experimenting with it. But it's a really tough problem to solve. We think of the spacesuit as a solved problem because we've all grown up with NASA and their spacesuits. It turns out that wearing those suits that we've all seen is really, really hard work for astronauts. And I'm sure some of you know some astronauts because we're in Florida, adjacent. But the issues that a suit presents, which is working against the inflation of the suit, is still really, really difficult. And I've just been experimenting with some stuff in this field, not to contribute to any engineering thing, just to please myself aesthetically, but those videos will come out soon. So yeah, I think it will be a spacesuit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Loki variant.
Mr. Savage, big fan. I know you're a maker and you work from metal to leather, everything in between. My question for you as a maker is, how do you how do you combat the problem every maker has of when you realize a build you have could be better and you have to just tell yourself you have to stop now?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the difference between making stuff for yourself and making stuff on the clock. And sometimes when you're making stuff for yourself, you have to put yourself on the clock in order just to get it done. And then you get to that spot where, look, it's never perfect. It's never, ever perfect. And it's never going to be perfect. When you get it perfect, you're going to be like, oh, this could be done. But what do I do with that when the delta between my satisfaction and the execution is large? It's a tough one. Often I wait until I'm angry enough to go back in. That is definitely a thing. Like, looking at something that's built wrong is a galvanizer to me. But also, sometimes it takes me a long time to figure out what the really, truly right solution is. So a lot of my building now, and this, if you're a young beginning maker, over time, you'll start to build a database of problem solving in your head. You can do a lot of it up here once you get good at visualizing stuff and kind of putting stuff together. And I just did this build untested that I had no idea how I was going to do the central framework of this build, but I thought about it for like 2 months, and then one night I was like, oh, wow, I'm an idiot. The solution was right there. And it was, and it worked like that the moment I tried it. But it took me 2 months of thinking about this build in order to kind of wrap my head around it. The other one is like, what is the reason I want to go back into the build? And for me, with all the costumes and the props and all the things, actually, all the things that I build, I'm always looking for a certain kind of experience. And it's not necessarily just the experience of putting on a costume and walking the con. I'm also looking for an experience from the object itself that sells a fantasy to me, right? Like, when we cosplay, we're pouring our bodies into the narratives that mean something to us. And when I'm holding on to a prop, a MacGuffin from a movie, I want it to feel authentic to that movie. So that's usually the reason that I don't achieve exactly what I want out of a build. I mean, I'm still not there with my Maltese Falcon. And that's been like 10 years now. That's not the longest build. It's also important to be gracious with yourself. I am as guilty of it as anybody, of like making a mistake or screwing something up and thinking, idiot, stupid. I've had all of these thoughts, some of them recently, and they don't belong in our brain pans, The world will criticize us enough without us helping. So I try and remember to be gentle about those things and forgive them, because we're all going to die with a to-do list. We're not crossing off all those boxes. We're never crossing all those boxes. Thank you for that lovely question.
Hi, Adam. I know that recently you are promoting the auction for the Grant Imahar Fund.
Yes, I have been recently promoting the prop store auction to benefit the Grant Imahara Steam Foundation. It's coming up very soon. Woo! Thank you for that plug.
Is there a certain prop in that auction that brings back a significant memory of Grant?
Of Grant, yeah, it's the terrifying RoboKitty. it's the monkey's paw that Grant built. Completely. I was down in LA at Prop Store, and we were filming a whole bunch of those videos for the auction, and they were really fun to make. But I shot like 20 videos a day for 3 days, so I didn't remember some of them. And then I was talking to my Tessa's GM, and she was saying, you should watch the one about RoboKitty. It's funny. And I was like, I don't remember anything I said about RoboKitty. And then I watched it last night, and I'm like, that's funny. That's the one that most speaks to Grant's wonderful, dark, brilliant sense of humor. Of the objects in the auction that I personally want, I wish I had a house or a school bus on which I could mount RoboShark. And now I want to know what the sign language for RoboShark is. Thank you for that awesome question. Thank you.
to you is, just like how a lot of celebrities do tend to steal props or costumes from their movie sets, what, if there was any prop or anything that you guys built on Mythbusters, what would you steal? And then subsequently to that, if you could have any prop ever from any movie, what would you pick?
Oh, wow. Now I'm thinking like the Batwing. The tumbler or the motorcycle. Sorry, the Mythbusters. The thing is that I already took all my favorite props. I've got 2 Civil War mini balls that are welded together by air. I have the $50 with a bullet hole through the middle of it. I've got an iPod, first generation iPod with a bullet hole right through it. Oh yeah, oh memories. But any prop from any movie, it's weird. I mean, I'm thinking strangely, and I don't know why. I'm thinking apocalyptically for survival. I don't know why. It could be anything, but it's like it's probably a vehicle, and it's probably like a boat, right? Like, to me, like a boat's going to be the most useful thing.
Not the Titanic.
What's that?
Not the Titanic.
Not the Titanic, but maybe the Orca. Right? Like, you know, Quint, I mean, which of us wouldn't want Quint on our post-apocalyptic team? He's at least going to be the hors d'oeuvre. Thank you.
Yes, first, thank you for writing Every Tool of the Hammer. Great maker philosophy in that. And my question is, what question have you always wanted to be asked at a panel?
Oh! You're making me do your job? Oh man, you guys get to everything eventually. I love talking about the process. I love talking about the creative process. I love talking about the look. I am positive that this room is full of people who started cosplaying without really knowing exactly why, and then there was a moment at which something happened and you, as I am right now, got like goose pimples, and something important was going on, and you still weren't sure about it, but you went towards it, and then you did it a little more, and something even deeper happened, and then you met a community, and that community brought out other things, and that this is a journey of self-discovery for all of us. And that confronting the challenges we do on the workbench is not dissimilar from the ways and the methods by which we learn to confront the challenges in our lives. You know, workbench is this very safe place, and by workbench that can be the interface of your coding interface, it could be your sewing machine, it could be anything. But at that zone, you confront problems, you solve them, and you learn about yourself in the process, because we get freaking cranky as hell when stuff doesn't go the way we want it to go. And we, you know, I'm super guilty of that. And this process of self-discovery is still going on for me. I learned many of the things I said in my TED Talk about cosplay while writing that TED Talk about cosplay. Because I had to put my experience into words. I wrote that talk in 3.5 days, back and forth with my wife, while I was in Vancouver and she's in San Francisco. We went through about 80 drafts. Every night I recorded one, and then the next morning I listened back to it, because I can hear when I listen to myself speak, I can hear exactly where I'm full of shit. And I can really work to make sure I'm saying something genuine, and that the transitions are right, and that there's a beat and a rhythm and a pace to it that I like. And in doing that, I learn about myself, and I think it makes me a more empathetic human. I think it makes me feel more connected to people as a whole. And I think it's really important that we all talk about that process, because I'm also sure that many of you have family members that are like, what kind of weird shit are you into? And that's fine. No one has to understand my journey, only I do. But like when we get to share that information with each other, there's a lot to learn. Really? Already only 10 minutes left? Holy crap! Aww. I'm so sad. Okay, let's see. Where are we at here? Yes, you, short person.
So my question is, if you had to take one elemental power, what would it be and why?
One elemental power? Okay. Do you mean would I be a firebender or an airbender?
Yeah.
Okay. Waterbending. could choose a superpower out of the ether, I would be a polyglot. I would know every language imaginable. Could you imagine how great the world would be that way?
Yeah.
Totally, right? This experience of us agreeing on that is what bonds us. There's hope, yes.
First, I just want to say I'm a really big fan of you, and you were my favorite person to watch on Mythbusters. So being able to see you is great. And my question, I'm sure you've been asked it before, but honestly, I really want to know is, what was your first cosplay you ever did?
My first cosplay I ever did was Spaceman. Yeah, I've been building spacesuits since I was like 6. In my hometown, Baskin Robbins would give you those big cardboard tubs they pull ice cream out of. And I found out they gave them to you, so I asked for some, and they gave me like a dozen. And I figured out my head fit in it. I'm like a dog. Like, is my foot fit in it? Yes. Is my head fit in it? Yes. Okay, what does that tell us? And then my father was an animator, so I took some clear acetate and put it in the face shield. And yeah, I went out as a spaceman. That was my very first cosplay. And I had a really interesting occurrence in therapy recently. So, like many of you if any of you are in therapy, you've been doing as I've done, you've been talking to your therapist on Zoom, which is weird. And I'm talking to my therapist, and Zoom was not working for some reason. And I was getting pretty salty about it. And so when I finally did, like 8 minutes later, click into therapy, and my therapist said, "How are you doing?" I was like, "You're getting to see me in my activated state right now." And that's unique, because that wouldn't happen in his office. And then he said, "Is there a coat or a jacket in your shop that might feel good to wear?" And I went, "Oh, wait a minute." And I went in the back, and I came back out with my fireman's turnout coat. The one Morning Pride, the makers of fireman's turnout gear, gave me and Jamie a full kit at the beginning of Mythbusters, and we wore it through all of Mythbusters. Every bomb, everything we blew up, I wore this jacket during it, and it is like a safety blanket to me. And I put it on, and I realized, at 53 dumb years old, why I've spent my whole life making armor and spacesuits. That the protection feels real to me. And that, like, there's some part of 11-year-old me that wanted to put some shell on to protect myself from the world, and I am still, I'm still diving into that activity. And I love that I only realized that 3 weeks ago or so is amazing to me. And I probably would have been able to come up with that, but it was such a nice example in the moment that there's still so much to learn. I can't even remember what your original question was, but thank you. Yeah.
What are some of your favorite memories with Jamie Heineman on Mythbusters?
I have a specific and really singular favorite memory of Jamie on Mythbusters. We were doing an episode about plate glass dropping from a high height and slicing a person in half.
Oh, yeah.
Cleaving them in twain. And in order to do this, we had to build a drop rig at the top of a 70-foot tall fire tower, and the drop rig cradled over the edge of the roof, and we got the glass hanging from it. It worked out great. And then we're finished with the episode. It's the end of the day. The sun's going down, and we've got to remove this rig. And the only two people really qualified to do it are me and Jamie. So Jamie gets in a bucket lift and goes up to 70 feet, which if you've ever been in a bucket lift, being 70 feet up is an absolute nightmare. These things, they rock back and forth. They're awful. It is the worst ride. And Jamie gets the bucket lift up, and I'm on the roof, and we're doing this transfer of this several hundred-pound welded steel thing, transferring its weight from the building to the bucket lift. And while we're doing this, we're really cognizant that this is a life and death procedure. There are a lot of ways this could go sour and harm either of us. And we're just methodically moving through it. And when we would do that kind of stuff, our brains ran on very parallel tracks where we needed very few pronouns to speak to each other. Just do the, with the, yeah, and then, yeah, okay. And there is a pleasure to working with someone at that level where you need very few nouns and verbs in order to communicate what's going on and what's important. And when we finally got the weight transferred over to his bucket lift and it was safe, he took the weight on, it felt good, he started to back away. And I was feeling this warm feeling, and he was apparently too, because he went, Nice work with Mr. Savage. Nice work. You too, Mr. Heineman.
Bright Suns, hello. I saw you were at Galaxy's Edge yesterday.
I was.
Two quick questions. Speaking of Ghostbusters, are you aware there's a Ghostbusters Easter egg in Galaxy's Edge?
Oh.
I spotted more than one. But I'm not sure it's the same one that they meant. There were a few very obvious resistors.
Right. Well, in Dockendar, in the baby Sarlacc tank, it has a bunch of symbols on it that are the same as the proton pack.
Oh, nice!
So then my question about that is, what's a Disney World attraction that just blows your mind technologically?
Oh, I mean, dude, the whole thing is astounding. The theater of it all. Because I wrote Rise of the Resistance yesterday. Yeah. And I mean, there's a thing that magicians do, which is they show you a trick, and then they show it to you again, and they show it to you again. And each time it gets more mystifying. And one of the reasons it's getting more mystifying is because they're changing their technique each time they show it to you. Each time your brain thinks you've figured it out, they're 2 steps ahead of you, and they're showing you how that's not possible, what you just thought was possible. And Disney does the same thing with its beautiful rides. It does one thing in one way, and you're like, oh, now I get how, wait a minute, that doesn't work that way. Like, that's thrilling to me. The way in which the rides, like, take some of the simplest elements of storytelling and memory and use it to fool you into a reality that's not possible is a freaking delight. Thank you.
Hi there, Adam. First, I want to say I'm so excited to be back at the convention. Thank you for coming back. We are so But my question is similar to his. I saw you were at Galaxy's Edge yesterday, and I know you working on the prequels, episode 1 and 2. What was it like, working on the movies, but then going to Galaxy's Edge and seeing it in like actual real time and real life? And do you think we'll ever get to see you do an Adam cosplay pop-up at Galaxy's Edge?
Oh, yeah. In the car on the way here, I was like, maybe I could get them to hire me as a costume performer for a day. I bet I can do that. So yeah, 100%. Oh man, standing in front of the Millennium Falcon, it's real. That's the feeling, it's real.
Did you happen to see the mini Millennium Falcon underneath the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon?
No.
Huh?
All right, I'll look for that next time.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being
Thank you. Yes.
So I know you're a big fan of The Martian.
Yes.
And you're even a bigger fan of Andy Weir.
Yep.
And I was wondering, because I know you're going to speak to him later this month at Silicon?
Silicon, yes.
Yeah. I was wondering if you could give us some of your spoiler-free thoughts on his new book, Project Hail Mary.
I have not read it yet.
Oh my God.
No, I will read it before I talk to Andy. COVID has really messed up my ability to read. Seriously, I mean, look, one thing that we've all gone through in the last 18 months is self-comfort, right? I mean, I've discovered that my fat is milk fat. Like, yeah, no, if you're gonna give me a fat, I want milk fat more than I want butter fat. And this thing is so comforting. I mean, I wish it wasn't, and I wish I didn't have to doom scroll all the time. But, I do, and reading has become really difficult for me to concentrate on reading. I have just finished a beautiful book on physics. It's a short book. But Andy's is on my list before I talk to him.
Yeah, I was wondering why you didn't have a This Is Untitled podcast about it yet, and now I know why.
Yes. Thank you for that question. Hellboy!
Dookie, actually.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I saw the red shirt and I made an assumption.
Trust me, I understand the heat.
Well done.
The most impressive costume you've ever seen that's not yours.
Oh. In 2019, I judged a cosplay contest somewhere. And every costume in that contest was beyond my abilities. Every single one. Yeah, I see costumes that blow my freaking mind every single day. I particularly love the weirdish mashups because the Hello Kitty Darth Vader is still... The Hello Kitty Darth Vader was like, I didn't know what I didn't know. Right? So for me, it's like yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I really dig. I also I always say this, but I love the people that come to a con with something they just slap together that morning because they want to be part of it. And I just like, not only do I not care that it's crappy, I like, that's important. You like did a thing, to do a thing, to be part of a thing, and that's real. So I want to make sure that there's no young people that have been waiting for a long time. Is there a young person at a mic that, no? Okay, then let's go with you as our last question. I'm so sorry I have to leave you now. It has been so lovely to chat with y'all.
Hello, it is surreal to see you in person. Hi. So I'm relatively fresh in this world. I remember when I was a kid, I saw your episode Mythbusters, where you attempted to construct a personal flying machine, a jet pack, so to speak, with these massive rotor blades. The thing barely worked, and then you mentioned earlier, and I've seen the video, you constructed a personal flying machine in the form of an Iron Man suit. That's just a few years. When I was a kid, in cartoons, they'd have video phones. Now you've got, little wristwatches and the FaceTime. I suppose I didn't formulate the end part of this question. What type of thing do you think the average Joe might be able to achieve, creatively speaking, with this advance in technology? I don't know. That's real open-ended.
Yeah, you're right. Technology is proceeding really quickly, and it's really lovely. The biggest issue right now is the CAD/CAM pipeline. It's being able to transfer what is in our heads into a computer using a 3D to 2D to 3D to 2D interface. And it's really hard. I'm terrible at CAD, and I've learned it, and then I've forgotten it, and I've learned it again, and then I've forgotten it, and learned it again. But the advanced, like everyone's working on this right now. When that problem gets really solved, I get really excited about what humans can then go do. Because we've already moved from a zone where we called all this stuff rapid prototyping to calling it rapid manufacturing, because that's really what it is now. The tools have become sophisticated enough, the plastics and the chemical engineering has become sophisticated enough where these things have a lifespan and they have a durability. That's really exciting to me. In human technology, for the longest time, only rich people had forks made out of metal because they could afford to pay someone to do that. And then we started stamping forks out of metal, and everyone could have one. I feel like we're going back to a point where anybody could have some custom bespoke things made for their lives, either by them or by someone down the street that they hired. And I love the idea of having an actual relationship with the people that make the things that I use. It's one of the things I love about Etsy. So you asked about technology, and I ended up talking about interpersonal relationships, but really that's where the rubber meets the road here. So that's the technology I get excited about people being able to transfer the ideas and the images and the fantasies they have in their head as easily as possible to be made flesh by whatever machine they've chosen. Thank you. Orlando, you guys have been so awesome. Thank you so